in increased AP participation. He knows what about building relationships is, about keeping kids, and so they're not dropouts, knowing every kid by name, actually going to their homes sometimes. He's like talking to me. So if Dan's in the room, you're talking to me. He talks to me on a daily basis. So if Dan shows up to something, it's not like I'm not there. This is somebody I truly trust that thinks like me. And when I was going around the country, Dan traveled with me a couple of times when I was doing motivational speaking, and he actually did a couple of my presentations when I wasn't available. So I want you to know that Dan gets it. He was a high school principal on January 13th in Blaine, and on January 14th he came to work for me at OSPI, because I truly believe we have to have people that have actually been there and done that, not bureaucrats that haven't been there recently. And I kind of get it every night. My wife is a librarian, and my youngest son teaches at Gates Alternative High School in Franklin Pierce, so I'm still connected to the front line. Okay, go ahead.
Just a couple of words. Can you hear me with, now you can really hear me. So imagine switching jobs in the middle of a contract. So just a little bit of history on that. Randy wins the election, and he calls me and said, "You want to come down to OSPI?" And I said, "Yeah." Would that, now that's November 4th or 5th. I said, "Yeah, would that be August 1st? He said, "No, that's January 14th. So picture yourself, as educators, you have to go to your principal, superintendent, whatever, and say.
And I even heard it from the Gates Foundation, that they want 80% of the kids college ready. Okay? I mean, you go, folks, you need to spend some time in high school. You need to spend the time in the labor market. And look where those jobs are. I just went on a tour for one day from Safeco Field down to Renton, and I visited three family-owned companies. One company rebuilds huge diesel engines that come out of mines and from Chile, Utah, and they have crankshafts from Germany that are this big around and go about 16 feet. Starting pay around $40,000 up to $110,000, full benefits, everything, and the place is spotless. This is not the old machine shop. In fact, they have a dust-free room where when they're done with it, they put this special oil on it, and then they have to do lab reports on each part of the component of the engine. It goes to a medical lab to prove that there's no bacteria, there's no dust in the machine. So if it goes bad, they can't come back in and say it doesn't work. I mean, this is high-tech. It's an internationally renowned company that all over the world, their machines come there. I looked at another company called Mason Company. That's the company that does construction work on water. Remember the Minneapolis bridge that went down? The company out of the waterway in Seattle had to move their cranes and their barges all the way around through the canal, up the Mississippi River, through a bunch of locks to there, and they built it in a 2-year period, 3 months ahead of time, and their people work 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. That's how they work it. And guess what? The frontline workers are 1/3 college graduates, 1/3 high school, community college, and 1/3 dropout and GED. But they're worried in the future that that GED and high school dropout is not going to have the foundation that they need in reading, writing, and math. They still need that foundation, and they're worried that that sector of their folks they hire is going to be gone. So we really thought it's starting to go in the right area, is that we're talking about all opportunities. This is the interesting one. This is kind of our leaky system, and I try not to show this in the public too much because you really think about it. Entering 9th graders, 100. And of those 9th graders complete high school, it could be argued it's from 75 to about 66. But whatever it is, you know, I settled on, the League of Education Voters says 31% dropout. So I kind of landed on that, but there's a couple of national studies that were as high as 35% dropout. And you know there's a lot of leaks to it. You know, a kid transfers out of your school, says he's going to another school, doesn't show up at community college, you go into the military, you go into a tech school, you go into an apprenticeship program. It's getting you career ready. It's meaning you don't have a job, you have a career, and you actually enjoy what you're doing. That's the whole point. I don't know, sometimes I think we sell college as the answer. I want you to know right now, I have a 30-year-old son. He's got a college degree. He's moving furniture for the Quadrant Corporation. It wasn't the answer, and now he's kind of thought about what he really wants to do. He's been a captain of a charter boat fishing, and he's been a guide for fishing, and he really wants to get into fish and wildlife. Well, a social studies teaching degree doesn't really open the door for fish and wildlife, okay? So he might have to go back and do a little more school, but he's starting to figure out the network thing of how you talk to people and you get ready for what you really want to do. So he should have spent more time. I tried to convince him of that, but his mom's a teacher, I'm a teacher. You know, his brothers, my brother, his sister-in-laws are teachers, his brother-in-law, and he just thought I was teaching. And I told him, is this really what you want to do? And boy, after student teaching, he knew one thing. This is really what I don't want to do. And so sometimes I'll probably end on this, but I used to say this, and I still think this is good today. The most expensive career exploration program we have to offer in the state of Washington is a 4-year college. Okay? That's the most expensive career exploration program we have. We should be giving guidance to kids in their choices of challenge, interest, and aptitude. I want you to know when I was in 5th grade, I knew exactly what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be a jockey. Okay? In the 7th grade, I was about 145 pounds, 5'8". Something about aptitude of being a jockey. Maybe I wanted to be a trainer instead, you know. So something about aptitude, and so when kids say they want to be a pro sports player, you might just look at them and say, let's take a look at who these people are and what they look like. And so it's a little bit to do with aptitude.
So, Mary, you said that we had 10 to 15 minutes, so I asked Superintendent Dorn a couple weeks ago, he wiped some stuff off of his schedule, and we drove up from Olympia this morning, separate cars. I got up at 4 and got here early, he got up at 5 and got stuck in it. But Mary, you said 10 or 15 minutes. It takes Superintendent Dorn 10 or 15 minutes to say hello. So,
take your time.
Are we okay?
We
So you have to stand
you're
up
doing great.
and start pointing at your, okay?
We're just
because
glad you're
otherwise
here.
we're just going to keep going.
We're glad
So
you're here.
anyway, when I put up the NAV 101 program, Fundamental Insight Number 1, a Discipline of Study, the issue is with NAV is that nobody puts it into place in a methodical way except the people in this room. If you didn't get the grant for whatever reason, you didn't put it into place. So huge kudos. I started January 14th, and January 16th I was testifying up at the legislature about why we should keep our funding. And you probably don't know about the funding piece, but the funding piece for nationwide, and it's going to be part of basic ed, because we have to teach this stuff or the kids don't guide themselves very well. My 2 counselors at Blaine High School took care of the kids that were crying, that had lost their boyfriend or something a lot worse than that, and the people that needed to get into Harvard or their helicopter parents. It's interesting because one of the people that helped me push NAV is a helicopter parent. She would tell you that. What's in it for my kid? I got to get him here. I got to get him in all the AP classes. That was really, really cool, but they didn't have time. So you got 2 counselors, 6